Chapter 15. Ma Chun-shang attends the funeral of an immortal, and Kuang Chao-jin proves himself a filial son. Ma Chun-shang was just kneeling to learn his fortune when someone addressed him from behind, and he turned to see a man who looked like an immortal. Ma immediately bowed. "I was not aware of your arrival," he said, "so I failed to greet you, sir. Since I have never had the honor of meeting you, may I ask how you knew that my name is Ma? Is there anyone who does not know you? Now that you have met me, there is no need to ask your fortune. You had better come with me to my humble house. Where is your distinguished abode?" "It is very near." Taking Ma Chun-shang's hand, the stranger led him out of the temple to a wide flat road on which there was not a single stone. And in next to no time they had reached the temple of Wu Tsu Hisu. Ma was surprised. This is a much shorter way, he thought. I must have taken the wrong road before. Unless, of course, he has some miraculous means of shortening the distance. Soon they reached the gates of the temple. "This is my humble home," said the stranger. "Please come in." Behind the temple hall were spacious grounds and a garden, and in the garden stood a 2-storied house with 5 large rooms, and a window on all sides which overlooked the river and the lake. The old man invited Ma Chun-shang to his room upstairs, and after bowing to each other they sat down. 4 smart attendants in silk and brocade, each wearing new shoes, served tea punctually, and when their masters bade them prepare a meal, they assented together before they left the room. Ma looked up and saw a scroll in the middle of the wall in which 28 large characters were written. It was the following poem. "I came here when the capital moved south, but times have altered since those good old days. The lakes and hills are lovely as before, and chanting poems I wander through the world." Beneath was the poet's name, Hung Kan Hee-sen. Since Ma had read enough history to know that the capital had been moved south during the Sung dynasty, he was able to calculate that this man must have been over 300 years old. No doubt about it, he was an immortal. "Is this fine composition yours, sir?" he inquired. "Kan Hee-sen is my unworthy name, but this is simply something I dashed off, not worthy of your consideration. If you enjoy poetry, I have a book of poems written by some provincial governors, commissioners, and myself in praise of the West Lake. I would appreciate your criticism on them." He reduced a manuscript containing poems with 7 characters to a line by different high officials. All the poems were about the lake, and there was a red official chop under each. Ma Chun-shang praised the verses highly, then handed them back to Hung Kan Hee-sen, who put them away. Presently dinner was served. A great dish of mutton cooked to a turn, a portion of duck preserved in wine, a large plate of ham and shrimp balls, and a bowl of clear soup. Considering it was not a feast, it was a pretty good spread. And although Ma was not hungry, to express his appreciation of the kindness of this immortal, he ate as much as he could. "I have long known your great reputation," said Hung Kan Hee-sen, when the table had been cleared. All the bookshops must be eager to secure your help. How is it then that you had leisure today to go and ask your fortune in that temple?" "I will tell you frankly, sir," replied Ma. Though I edited a collection of essays in Chie Sing this year and received several dozen tales as remuneration. What is that word? I don't know what that word is. I spent the whole sum on behalf of a friend, and though I am now staying in a bookshop here, I have not yet received any essays. I have come to the end of my money and have been feeling rather worried. So I came out for a stroll and thought I would ask my fortune in the temple to discover whether there was any likelihood of my making money or not. But now that I have met you, sir, and you have gone straight to the heart of my trouble, there is no need for me to ask you my fortune. Making money is not difficult. You may have to wait a little, though, before amassing a real fortune. What would you say to making a little money as a start? Provided I make money, I don't care whether it is much or little. But I don't know, sir. What do you have in mind? Hung Kan Heesin appeared to be pondering for a moment. "Well, I will give you something to try out in your lodgings," he said. "If it proves satisfactory, come and ask me for more. And if this experiment fails, we can think of something else." He went into his inner chamber, opened a package beside his bed, and took out several pieces of charcoal, which he gave to Ma, saying, "Take these to your lodgings and light a brazier. Then heat these above the flames in some container and see what happens. Come and tell me the results." Ma Chun Shang took the charcoal, said goodbye to Mr. Hung, and returned to his lodgings. That evening he lit a brazier, placed some of the charcoal in a pot over it, and after the fire had crackled for some time, emptied the pot to find that the charcoal had turned into an ingot of silver. Overjoyed, he immediately heated 6 or 7 pots more, obtaining from them 6 or 7 more ingots. Then, uncertain whether this was real silver or not, he went to bed. The next morning he went out early to have his ingots examined by the money changers. And when they assured him that the silver was genuine, he changed a part of it for several thousand coppers, which he took back to his lodgings. When he had put the money away, he hurried to Hung Kan Heesin's house to thank him. Mr. Hung came out to meet him. "How did it go last night?" he asked. "It was miraculous," exclaimed Ma. He described what had happened and how much silver he had obtained. "That's nothing," said Hung Kan Heesin. "I have some more here. You had better take it and try again." He produced another package which contained 3 or 4 times as much as the first, entertained Ma to another meal, and then saw him off. Ma Chun Shang's brazier was kept busy for the next 6 or 7 days producing silver, until he had used up all the charcoal, and he found when he weighed the silver that he had 80 or 90 taels worth. Hardly able to contain himself for joy, he wrapped up the money and put it away. One day, Hung Kan Heesin sent a messenger to invite Ma to his house. "You are from Chu Chao, and I am from Tai Chao," he said. "Coming from neighboring districts, we can consider ourselves as fellow countrymen. I am expecting a guest today, and I would like to introduce you to him as my cousin. For that will give you the opportunity you want. This is a chance you must on no account miss. May I ask the name of your distinguished guest? He is the 3rd son of the former Minister Hu, and his name is Hu Chin. The minister left a fortune to his sons, but this gentleman is so fond of money that he thinks he can never have enough, and he wants to learn my method of producing silver. He is willing to spend thousands of taels for the equipment, but we need an intermediary. Now Mr. Hu has heard of your great name, and since you are selecting essays in the literary expense bookshop and have a fixed address, we can trust you. In another 7 weeks, after we meet today and settle this matter, I shall produce the Philosopher's Stone, which can turn any metal to gold. That will be worth millions. But since I don't need so much money myself, I mean to bid farewell to this world and return to the mountain, leaving part of the Philosopher's Stone to you. Then you will want for nothing." After the wonders he had seen Hung Kan Heesin perform, Ma had implicit faith in him. So they waited together for Mr. Hu. Presently Mr. Hu arrived, greeted Mr. Huang, looked at Ma and asked, "May I know this gentleman's honorable name?" "This is my cousin, Ma Chun Shang of Chu Chao," said Hung Kan Heesin. "You see his name in all the bookshop advertisements for essays." Mr. Hu greeted Ma with respect, and they sat down together. When Mr. Hu cast his eyes around the room and noticed Mr. Hung's saintly appearance, the luxurious furniture, and the four attendants presenting tea one after the other, and when he considered that Ma Chun Shang, the editor, was Mr. Huang's cousin, any misgivings he had left him. He sat there in high good humor until it was time to leave. The next day, Hung Kan Heesin and Ma Chun Shang went by the seat and chair to return the visit. Ma presented Mr. Hu with a new selection of essays, after which Mr. Hu entertained them for some time. And soon after their return home, a servant arrived from the Hu family with invitations for them both to a feast by the lake the following day. "My master salutes you, gentlemen," said the servant. "The feast will be in the garden by Imperial Script Pavilion at the West Lake, and he hopes you will go there early tomorrow." Mr. Hung accepted the invitations. The next day they went by seat and chair to the pavilion, found the gate of the garden wide open, and Mr. Hugh there to welcome them. 2 tables had been spread and an opera was being performed, and thus the day passed very pleasantly. Ma remembered how he had come here all alone and watched other people feasting, while today, by a happy coincidence, he was a guest here himself. The wine, food, and sweetmeats were of the best, and he made an excellent meal. Mr. Hugh arranged to invite them to his home again in a few days to sign a contract which Ma would witness. He also promised to have a laboratory prepared in his garden and declared that he would make an initial payment of 10,000 taels so that Mr. Hung could buy the necessary equipment and take up his quarters in the laboratory. This matter decided, in the evening the feast ended, and Ma went back to his seat and chair in the bookshop. Mr. Ma went back by seat and chair to the bookshop. When 4 days passed without any word from Hung Kan Heesin, Ma decided to call on him. But as soon as he went in, he found 4 attendants in confusion, and learned that Mr. Hung was seriously ill. In fact, the doctors declared that his pulse was so weak that further treatment was useless. Greatly shocked, Ma hurried upstairs to see the sick man, but he found him at his last gasp, unable to raise his head. Since Ma was a kind-hearted man, he stayed by his sick friend's side all night. 2 days later, however, Huang Kan Heesin breathed his last. The 4 attendants were at their wits' end, and when they searched the house for valuables, they found only 4 or 5 silk gowns which might be worth a few taels. There was nothing else. All the cases were empty, and now it appeared that these 4 men were not servants. One of them was Hung Kan Heesin's son, 2 were nephews, and 1 was his son-in-law. When Ma heard this, he was appalled. But since there was no money to buy a coffin, and he was a good man, he hurried to his lodgings to fetch 10 taels of silver for the funeral expenses. Then, while the son wailed beside the corpse and the nephew went out to buy a coffin, the son-in-law, who had nothing to do, took Ma to a neighboring tea-house to chat. "Your father-in-law was an immortal who had lived more than 300 years, said Ma. "What made him die all of a sudden?" 300 years. Nonsense, retorted the son-in-law. "The old man was only 66 this year. He was an old villain, a regular swindler. However much money he made, he always threw it away. That's why he's ended up like this. To tell you the truth, sir, we were merchants before, but we gave up our business to help him bamboozle people. Now that he's gone, we shall have to beg our way home. All of us are in a bad way. By his bed, the old gentleman had a number of packages of charcoal which would turn into silver if you heated them above a brazier. That wasn't charcoal. It was silver coated with charcoal. As soon as it was burnt, the silver reappeared. That was a trick to fool people. But when the silver was used up, that was the end of it. But there's another thing, persisted Ma. If he wasn't a saint, how did he know that my name was Ma when he met me for the first time in St. Ting's temple? He had you there again. When he came out of the rocky grotto that day after a seance, he saw you reading in the bookshop. And when the shopkeeper asked you your name, you told him that you were the Mr. Ma who edited that volume of essays. My father-in-law overheard you. That's how he knew. There aren't any saints in the world. Only then did Ma realize that the old man had made up to him in order to deceive Mr. Hugh, and it was pure luck that Mr. Hugh had not been swindled. Still, he thought, what harm did he do to me? I ought to be grateful to him. They went back to prepare the body for the coffin, paid the rent for the temple rooms, and hired men to carry the coffin outside Clearstream Gate. Ma also prepared sacrificial meat and wine and paper coins, and saw that the coffin was properly bricked over. What was left of the 10 taels he gave to the 4 men for their journey. After thanking him, they left. When Ma had seen them off, he went back to the mountain of the guardian deity to drink tea and noticed a new table outside the tea house, where a young fortune-teller was sitting. Though lean and undersized, this young man looked intelligent. But the curious thing about him was that although he had ink, brush, and the characters for fortune-telling in front of him, he was reading a book. Out of curiosity, Ma went up to the young man, pretending that he wanted to have his fortune told, only to discover that the youth was reading his own new selection of essays. When Ma sat on the stool beside his table, the young man put down his book. "Do you want your fortune told, sir?" he asked. "I have walked too far," said Ma. "I will just rest here if I may." "Please do. I will fetch you some tea." He brought a bowl of tea from the tea house for Ma, and sat down with him. Seeing how helpful he was, Ma said, "May I know your name, and are you a native of this city?" The young man knew from Ma's cap that he must be a scholar, so he answered, "Your pupil's name is Kuang. I am not of this city, but come from Yueqing district in Wenchao." Ma saw that he was wearing a worn cap and thin, threadbare gown. "Why have you come all this way to do work like this?" he asked. "You can hardly make enough to support yourself. How old are you? And have you parents or wife and children? Judging by your fondness for reading, you must be a student." "I am 22 and not yet married. I have parents at home and have studied for a few years. But my family was too poor to let me complete my studies, so I came here last year with a firewood merchant to keep his accounts. Then that merchant lost his capital and could not go back, and I found myself stranded here. The other day a man came from my district and told me that my father was ill at home, and I am miserable because I don't know whether he is alive or dead." Tears as big as peas rained down his cheeks. Ma felt very sorry for the youth. "Don't take it so much to heart," he said. "What is your personal name?" The young man stopped weeping to reply, "My name is Kuang Chaojin, but I have not yet asked your honorable name and district." "That you need not ask. I am the Ma Chun Shang whose name is on the cover of that book you were reading just now." When Kuang Chaojin heard this, he made haste to bow. "Although I have eyes," he exclaimed, "I failed to see Mount Tai." Ma bowed in return. "Don't be polite," he said. "Although we have met by chance, we are both scholars. It is growing late, so you won't have much business now. Why not stop work and come back to my room for a chat?" I should like to very much. Please remain seated, sir, while I clear out my things." Kuang Chaojin put down his ink and pen. Kuang Chaojin put his ink, pen, and paper into a bundle, which he slung over his back, and took this with his table and stool to the temple opposite. Then he accompanied Ma to the Literary Expanse bookshop and sat down in his room. "Tell me, friend," said Ma, "do you want to go on studying or to go back to see your father?" Kuang Chaojin shed tears once more. "I can't make enough to feed or clothe myself properly, sir," he replied. "What money do I have to continue my studies? No, that is out of the question. But to know that my father lies ill at home, yet not to be able to go back to look after him, makes me feel worse than a beast. It upsets me so much that sometimes I've thought it would be better to kill myself." Come, that would never do," cried Ma. "Your filial piety should move heaven and earth. But sit down while I prepare a meal for you." He entertained Kuang to supper. "Now supposing you want to go home," he asked, "how much would you need for the journey?" "I don't need much, just enough for the fare by boat for a few days. Once ashore again, I certainly wouldn't take a chair, but carry my luggage on my back. Even if I skipped a few meals, that wouldn't matter. If I could just see my father again, I should die content." "All right, stay here tonight, and we'll think it over carefully." Later in the evening, Ma asked, "How many years have you studied? Can you write compositions?" Kuang replied that he could. "In that case," said Ma with a smile, "I'll make so bold as to set a subject and ask you to write a composition for me, to see how much chance you have to study for the examinations. Have you any objection?" I was just wishing I could ask for your instruction, but I don't know how to write. I'm afraid you'll laugh at me." "Of course not. I'll set a subject then, and you can write on it tomorrow." This was no sooner said than done, after which Ma advised Kuang to go to bed. When Ma got up the next day, the young man handed in his compositions neatly copied out. Ma was pleased. "You were diligent and quick," he said. "Very good, very good." After reading the composition, he commented, "Your essays show talent, but you are not sufficiently familiar with the method of reasoning." Then, spreading the manuscript on the table and punctuating it with his brush, he explained the use of antithesis and analogy, and other rules of parku compositions. Kuang bowed to express his thanks, then prepared to take his leave. "Wait a minute," said Ma. "It's no good for you to stay too long in Hangzhou. I'm going to give you your fare home. Since you are so good, I will ask just for one tael. No. When you get home, you must have some money to support your parents. so that you have time to study. I'm giving you 10 taels. You can start a little business with it when you go back, and get a doctor to attend to your father." Ma opened his case and took out 10 taels, then found an old padded jacket and a pair of shoes which he gave to Kuang Chao Jian. "Take this money home," he said. "I'm afraid it may be cold on the trip, and the shoes and jacket are for you to wear in the early morning and evenings." Kuang shed tears as he took these gifts. "You are too good to me," he exclaimed. "How can I ever repay your kindness? I would like to become your sworn brother in order to be able to ask for your advice in future. But you may think this is too bold a request." Ma was delighted, however, and allowed Kuang Chao Jian to bow to him, and they bowed to each other and became sworn brothers. After this, Ma prepared a simple farewell meal for the young man. "If you take my advice," said Ma during the meal, "after you reach home you should consider passing the official examinations as the most important way of pleasing your parents. There is no other way for men to achieve fame. That fortune-telling is a low profession goes without saying, but even teaching and secretarial work are not proper careers. If, however, you are brilliant enough to pass the examinations, you immediately reflect credit upon your whole family. That is why the Book of Filial Piety tells us to reflect credit on your family, and to spread your fame shows the greatest piety. At the same time, of course, you do very well for yourself. As the proverb says, there are golden mansions in study, there are bushels of rice and beautiful women. And what is study today if not alpaca compositions? So when you go back to look after your parents, you must consider study for the examinations of prime importance. Even if your business does badly, and you cannot give your father and mother all they want, they need not worry you. That need not worry you. Writing compositions is the main thing. For when your father lies ill in bed with nothing to eat and hears you declaiming compositions, no doubt about it, his heart will burst with joy. His sadness will disappear, and his pain will pass away. That is what Sing Su meant when he spoke of pleasing the parents. And if you are not lucky enough to pass all the examinations, you will at least be able to become a stipendiary, which will enable you to be a tutor and apply for titles for your parents. I am old and good for nothing, but you are young and brilliant. You must listen to me so that later, when you become an official, we may meet again." Then Ma carefully selected a few volumes of essays from his bookcase and wrapped them up with the clothes. "These are all good," he said. "Take them to read." Reluctant as he was to leave, Kuang Chao Jian was eager to see his father again. So with tears in his eyes, he said goodbye. Ma took his hand and went with him to his former lodgings on the mountain of the guardian deity to fetch his bedding, then saw him out of Clear Stream Gate and all the way to the boat. When the young man had got on board, Ma went back to the city. After crossing the Chian Tang River, Kuang looked for a boat to Wen Chao. He hailed a passing vessel to ask whether they would take a passenger. "This is Mr. Ching's boat," replied the boatman, "and he is traveling on business for the governor. We can't pick anyone up." Kuang was shouldering his luggage to turn away, when a white-bearded old man called from the cabin window. "It doesn't matter picking up one passenger, boatman. He will tip you for your trouble." "Since the gentleman says so, you can come on board," said the boatman. He steered the boat to the bank and helped Kuang on deck. Kuang put down his luggage and bowed to the old man. There were 3 men in the cabin. Mr. Chin was sitting in the middle with his son on one side and a traveler from another district on the other. Mr. Ching returned Kuang's greeting and told him to sit down. Since Kuang Chao Jian was clever, did all he could to make himself useful, and addressed the old man respectfully, Mr. Chin was so pleased with him that he invited him to share their meals. And after one meal, when they had nothing to do, Mr. Chin remarked, "Nowadays, human nature has deteriorated so much that even scholars show no filial piety. In Wen Chao, there are 3 brothers named Chang, who have passed the first examinations. But because the two elder brothers suspected that their father had left most of his property to their younger brother, they were always making trouble at home. Their father was angry and reported them to the court. But these 2 brothers bribed the county and prefectural officers to forge a false statement and hush up the matter. There was an old secretary in the prefectural court, however, who was a just man, and he reported the matter to the governor. who has ordered me to go to Winchow to arrest the culprits." "When you have arrested them and found out the truth," said the other traveller, "won't all the officials in the county and prefectural courts find themselves in trouble? When the truth is discovered, they will all be punished." When Kuang Chao Jin heard this, he sighed to himself as he thought, "So rich men are unfilial sons, but a poor man like myself who wants to be a good son can't. The unfairness of it all." 2 days later, it was time for him to go ashore. Kuang Chao Jin thanked Mr. Ching, and when the old man refused to accept payment for the meals, he thanked him again. He pressed forward, travelling by day and resting by night, till he reached his own village and came in sight of his home. But to know what followed, you must read the next chapter.